7. All right, I am going to end the poll now. So good, I can see that quite a few of you have selected the correct answer here. So again, 7x plus 12 is divisible by 10. That is what is given to us, and we need to find out the even odd nature of x. Now, if 7x plus 12 is divisible by 10, we know that it's going to be divisible by 2 as well, right? Which means that it is even, right? So that's an inference that we have drawn, okay? Now, if 7x plus 12 is even, and we know that, okay, 12 is even, and we know that even plus even is always even, which means that 7x has to be even. Again, another inference that we are drawing, okay? Now, 7 is not even, which means that for 7x to be even, x has to be even. Third inference that we have drawn, okay? So again, the correct answer over here is choice A. Okay, so again, simple question, but look at how we have broken down your thought process for these questions in terms of your inference drawing process skill. At every step, you are drawing an inference and you are arriving at you are coming closer to the correct answer. Okay, all right. Now, for those of you who made a mistake, where did you falter? There are 13 of you who could not solve this question, another 7 of you who selected choices B or C, so about 20 of you. So tell me, where did you falter? And again, this analysis is very, very important for everyone in the class. Divisible by 5, so x can be odd. Well, it's divisible by 10, right? So if it's divisible by 10, then it's divisible by both 2 and 5, which means, and if it's divisible by 2, then it has to be even. Now, mistakenly selected B, I'm okay with that. That can be construed as a silly mistake because you got to the correct answer, but you just made an incorrect selection. Now, again, in the test environment, that can be very expensive mistake, but that's something which you have to, which I can't teach you. That's a thing that you need to work on your own. Poll closed, so you couldn't select. Okay, that's fine. Late in solving. Okay, that's fine. Try to solve an exact number for x, so miss the larger point of figuring out if even or odd. So again, very, very important to have the right kind of approach for every question, right? People who opt for number substitution without thinking about why is it that I need to insert numbers, without thinking about the basics of the concepts, you end up making incorrect, you end up selecting incorrect choices. Okay, so again, very, very important to not resort to number substitution. While number substitution may seem to be the easiest thing to do, it's not always the most it's not typically the optimum approach. Why? Because every time you select a number, you need to have a solid rationale behind why is it that you're selecting that number. Okay, and in order to have that rationale, you need to do some pre-analysis. Okay, so again, whenever you feel the urge to just select a number and punch in the number and then get to the answer, I want you to fight that urge. Okay, now I'm not saying that in no case you should be selecting numbers. There are, as I said earlier, there are cases in which number substitution makes more sense. But again, this is not the platform to discuss that. That's a topic for another session. Okay, all right. Now, for those of you who didn't infer that a number divisible by 10 has to be even, again, that's where that's a skill that you need to build upon. I mean, you know what you are lagging in. Okay, you know the even odd concept, but you don't know it enough. You haven't practiced it the right way such that you can draw these inferences, because these are the most basic of the inferences that you should be able to draw. Okay. All right, sounds good. Now let's move on to question number 8, another 3 choices question. Go ahead, click on still solving, please. So 2 more process skill questions left, okay, for even odd, and then we'll discuss the 3 GMAT-like questions on even odd. All right, I'm going to broadcast the results now. Okay, well, the 96 of you who selected choice B are going to be disappointed. The correct answer here is choice C, cannot be determined. And the reason why you faltered here was because you didn't consider all cases. Okay, so that's a process skill that you failed to apply. All right, so let me walk you through this. If x to the power 3y minus 1 is even, where x and y are integers, what is the remainder when x is divided by 2? Okay, now, essentially what we are asking, what we've been asked is, what's the remainder when x is divided by 2? We need to translate that, and when we translate it, what we get is that is x even, because if x is even, then the remainder will be 0. If x is not even, then remainder will be 1. So again, we don't really need to find the actual value of x. That's something which is very important, and this skill is, this kind of analysis is very important in data sufficiency questions. Again, one thing that you will see is that such inferences that we are drawing, I mean the yes/no questions that we are asking, these things actually become very, very integral parts of the entire solution of typical DS question. Okay, so again, very important to understand that we don't actually need the actual value of x. All we need is the even-odd nature of x. Okay, all right. So now, let's look at what is the expression. The expression x to the power 3y minus 1 is even. So we again split it up. X to the power 3y minus an odd number is an even number. So again, x to the power 3y is its summation of even and an odd number, which is always odd, right? So x to the power 3y is odd. That's something that you know. Now, when you're dealing with exponents, there are always 2 cases that you have to consider. Case 1 is when y is not equal to 0. In this case, when y is greater than 0. Case 2, when y is equal to 0. And remember, we dealt with that in question number 3, I believe, wherein m to the power 0 was 1 always. Right, the similar thing is happening over here as well. You have to consider the case when the exponent is 0. Remember? Now, which is case number 2, and this is the case that you did not consider. Okay, all of you considered simply the case number 1, and you said, oh, it's odd, so it can be, so the answer is B, and that's where you got to choice B as the correct answer. Okay, but you forgot to consider the case of the exponent being 0. in which case x can be either even or odd, which means that you cannot determine the even odd nature of x. So what's the learning from this question? And again, I want you to draw these linkages. Remember, in that question, m to the power 0, some of you got that question wrong. Why? Because you didn't consider m to the power 0 to be 1, right? So that is that's a case that you have to consider. Okay, and which is why you have to, if you focus on these process skills, what happened was the reason why you got that question wrong was also because you didn't consider all the cases. The reason that you got this question wrong was also because you didn't consider all the cases. Right? Now imagine a system that gives you that information. Imagine if when you're consciously thinking about what process skill you're not applying, you will be able to understand where is it that you're going wrong. Okay? All right. So let's move on to our last question in this category over here. Again, 3 choices. Go ahead and click on still solving. All right, so let's discuss this one. Okay, so if A and B are two positive, and let me share the screen here, there is a tie between, almost a tie between A and C. The correct answer here is C. Okay, so let's talk about this one. So if A and B are two positive integers, so again it's the two positive integers, which means greater than 0, such that A squared by B gives an even number. Okay, now what is the remainder when A to the power B plus B to the power A is divided by 2? So essentially what we need to figure out is A to the power B plus B to the power A even? Okay, so again all we are doing is translating that information. Okay, so if it is even, then the remainder is 0. If it's not even, then the remainder is 1. Okay, now power does not change the even odd nature of a number, so what we really need to figure out is A plus B even, right? So that's what we need to find out. Now what's given to us? A squared divided by B is an even number, so you can simplify this further and say A squared is equal to even times B. Okay, now here is where you draw an inference. Okay, A squared is always going to be even, right? Because no matter, regardless of the nature of b, a square is also always going to be even. So a is always going to be even. But given what the information that's given to you, there's nothing that you can talk about, that you can infer about the number b. Okay, so we don't know if a plus b is even or odd, which means it cannot be determined. So now, for those of you who arrived at the conclusion that a plus b is even, what did you where did you falter? A square cannot be odd. Why? Because again, look at the information that's given to you. A square divided by b is an even number, which means that a square is nothing but even number times b. Now, even number times any number is always an even number. Okay, so all we are doing is we're just drawing the inferences based on your conceptual understanding and based on what's given to you in the question statement. Okay. Concluded wrongly that a square by b implies that a and b are even. Okay, so again you drew incorrect inference. So what is the process skill that you faltered at? If you had made this mistake on your while solving questions on your own, what is the process skill that you would have written as the place where you faltered? Which process skill did you falter at? Inference, absolutely right. Okay, all right. B is not a perfect square. All right. Okay, so how perfect square divided by odd is even? Let me take a look at this one. Okay, B cannot be odd. Why is that the case? Why can't B be odd? Okay, we're going to take a look at your comment over here and then come back to this, okay? All right, let me take a look at your comment here. But in the meanwhile, let's carry on with our next thing over here. Okay, so the example is 36 divided by 3. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so 36 divided by 3 is 12, and that's an even number here. Thank you. Thank you for that example. Okay. All right, so now let's carry on with